If the Pope told me to stop watching rated R movies tonight, would I drop my popcorn and my sugar water? I believe that the Pope is infallible, right? By speaking divine truth 24/7, so whatever he says, I must obey, no ifs and buts about it.
Yes, definitely.
The Pope is like God's VIP on earth, right? With the superpower of infallibility. I'm sure you've heard something similar before, or maybe you yourself actually asked that question. And don't worry, I'm not here to bash you, call you names, or make fun of you for asking questions like this. I won't even flip out and call you ignorant. I let my meme speak for me.
Well, don't worry. Don't worry. I'm not gonna do what you all think I'm gonna do, which is just flip out!
Of course I'm kidding, or am I? This is honestly a common misconception. I understand why many people might not be familiar with Catholic beliefs and traditions. For the past 500 years, especially since the Reformation, the Catholic Church has faced some significant criticism and challenges, which has shaped a lot of public perception. I'm sure the 90s also didn't help. But I can also stand here in front of this camera with a microphone in my hand and publicly announce that I too, at one point, believed that whatever the Pope says, I'm supposed to follow, which was a huge issue for me in my teens and early 20s, hence one of the reasons why I walked away from Catholicism for a while. For some reason, I thought that I am called to obey the Holy Father, like a good little Christian boy. Therefore, I cannot resist, disagree, or not believe what the Pope believes. And although it sounded very convincing, it's simply not true. Hit that intro. We got a new Pope earlier this year. After years of controversy with Pope Francis, the Church elected a new Pope. In fact, they elected the very first American Pope.
And Dr. Liz Love is also talking about the symbolism of the red that he's wearing. You know, it is a sacrificial role.
Still white, still male. So relax, my traditional Catholic friends. Progressives are not interested in joining the Catholic Church just yet. Because remember, they are the open-minded people who are quick to shut the book if the author's an old white Catholic male. But with an American Pope at the top and being half American myself, I must be excited to adopt whatever he says. He's a White Sox fan, which means that all Catholics must be White Sox fans now, right? No, that's not at all how this works. In fact, you can disagree with many of the things that the Pope says, and you don't have to align with his opinion on most things. And trust me, there's a lot of Catholics that do not agree with what the Pope usually says. Ever heard of Taylor Marshall? So what's the whole deal with the infallibility thing? Good question. And to answer that, we must start from the beginning, when the beginning began and the began begun. Doesn't even make sense. It sounds like one of Will Smith's stupid bars.
I pulled the pin out the grenade on purpose when I threw it. And even though I'm an action star, sometimes I'ma act bizarre. Cause I'm an artist at heart.
Please, Big Willie, come back to the light. Pause. I don't think a man should be calling another man Big Willie. Picture this. It's the 19th century, 1870 to be exact, and the Catholic Church is having a giant meeting called the First Vatican Council. Imagine a big conference room full of bishop, cardinals, and the Pope himself, all wearing fancy robes that likely cost about 10,000 scudos. One scudo was roughly equivalent to about 50 cents US dollars. Of course, US dollars didn't exist then, but you get my drift. And they are all probably arguing over theology or who had the best tonsure haircut. Listen, God did not approve this. Trust me, whoever came up with that idea, heretics, 100%. Now, the church was dealing with a lot of pressure back then. There were lots of new ideas floating around post-Enlightenment era, especially in Europe. My European friends, my family. What's going on, man? We were also in the late Industrial Revolution, and church was dealing with all of that, but also the consequences of a modern secular government that stripped the influence of the church, swapping out the authority of the church and gave it to the government. How's that been working out, by the way?
Not well, my ass!
And people began questioning everything from science to religion. So the bishops thought, hey, we need to make the Pope's teaching on faith and morals as rock solid as possible so no one gets confused with the external influence that is clearly corrupting the morality and values we all live by. So after much debate, they decided when the Pope speaks officially on faith or morals, he means business and he cannot be wrong, like zero chance, otherwise it could destroy the church.
Am I getting through to you?
That, my friends, is infallibility, and it can only be infallible when he's in ex-cathedral mode. That's Latin for, big boss chair mode. This chair, the chair of Peter, which by the way is both a symbol and a physical object that sits at St. Peter's Basilica, it's beautiful. I saw it this year. I mean, wow. So the Pope can only speak infallibly if he climbs up that giant golden barricade sculpture which the chair is encased in, and he must say the following: "From this actual seat I declare," I am kidding. The chair is actually just a historical relic now, hence why it's encased. So no, the Pope doesn't actually need to climb up and sit in the chair of Peter, and he doesn't have to technically say, "I'm speaking from the chair of Peter" either. That's a common myth. What does need to happen is a clear signal that the Pope is speaking as the Pope. It can only apply towards doctrine of faith and morals. He must make a binding declaration for all Christians and must ensure it's definitive and infallible, which is considered ex cathedra. I know what you're thinking. Why am I so incredibly handsome? Well, it's because of today's sponsor. I don't know why I just naturally flowed into the sponsorship that I don't have. I've been stuck in a digital world way too long, and clearly I do need a sponsor. So if anybody's out there, maybe like a beard company or something, or anything that's Christian related, I would love to, sponsor you. But I do need to touch grass. Let me go touch grass real quick. If you know nothing about the history of Christianity beyond Jesus' resurrection, you are missing out, because there's a plethora of interesting books on the history of Christianity. And if the superpower of infallibility was absent pre-1870, why are we binding ourselves to this rule? Again, honestly, that's a good question. But pre-Vatican Council I, Christians recognized the authority of the Bishop of Rome, aka the Pope, as having a unique role in settling disputes. Saint Augustine, or Augustine, depending on who you speak to, St. Cyprian, St. Thomas Aquinas, and many, many more, understood the role of the Pope and referenced Rome as the final word on doctrinal matters and disputes. The word infallible was never used, though, okay? I just want to be very clear about that. But the idea of infallibility was there from the very, very beginning, and it was established that the authority of the Bishop of Rome would be the head over all Christians to remain united. Think of the early forefathers of America. Not the version that we see now, but the version that tried to unite all of America under one banner. That was Christianity. The church had multiple councils discussing the authority of the church, like the Council of Florence and the Council of Trent. Papal infallibility was widely discussed and supported amongst most of the Catholics. Maybe not the Protestants, since they challenged the Pope's authority, which only increased the growth of Catholic apologists. But nevertheless, infallibility wasn't dogmatically defined yet, and therefore it was officially declared and clarified so we could stop this merry-go-round of heresies and challenging the structure of the church, which, by the way, you'll see throughout history that a lot of clarifying and having things be dogmatically defined usually happen to counter heresies in the secular world, as well as liberalism that try to change everything. Everything about the Catholic Church.
Hi, I'm Father Jim Martin. I'm a Jesuit priest.
Shut up! Shut up! Shut up!
So now we know what infallibility means and when it can be used, which means you can 100% disagree with the Pope when it comes to social, political, and scientific issues like climate change, like LGBTQ rights or civil unions, like economic and wealth distribution, like vaccines, like immigration, and the biggest threat of all, and is a real threat right now, AI. I don't think people recognize the dangers of You thought it was frozen, didn't you? Didn't you? I got you. Don't lie. I know I got you. I got you. And if I did get you, make sure you click that thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. My point is, you can disagree because the Pope is, in the end of the day, a human. He has his own personal opinions, his own personal views that are not infallible. You can always respectfully disagree with the Pope and many Catholics do, including myself. In fact, I'm pretty sure I got banned off of Michael Lofton's channel for one of my comments. What you cannot agree with is when the Pope speaks ex cathedra, and how many times do you think in 2,000 years? Pause. Let's just go from the time infallibility was canonized, so about 155 years and 13 popes ago. How many times do you think the Pope has spoken infallibly? 1, 2, 6, 10, 30? Take a guess. I'll give you a few seconds. All right, that's enough. Only once since 1870. That's right. In 1950, Pope Pius XII exercised his superpower and declared the Assumption of Mary as canon. Yep, only one time to declare the understanding that was already held by Catholics, but needed to be clarified so people could stop making up things like everything in the book and the movie Da Vinci Code, which, by the way, is excellent film. Just the first one, But the series, the book series, excellent. I have it somewhere here. It's somewhere. But here's a twist. What about just in general, in the past 2,000 years of Christianity, how many times did a version of the Pope invoke formal ex cathedra infallibility? I'll give you another 5 seconds. All right, time's up. 2 times. That's right. Since the inception of Christianity, infallibility has only been invoked twice. Pope Pius IX declared the Immaculate Conception, which declared that Mary was conceived without original sin. Again, both teachings were already believed by Christians before they were made official. And get this, if you haven't noticed, both infallible declarations were about, that's right, Mary.
Wow.
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 I mean, are you starting to see why Catholics have such a deep love and reverence for her? And yet somehow people still try to diminish her role in the church, in Christ's life, the fact that she gave birth to God. Wait, I thought the Catholic Church was all about oppressing women and erasing them from Christianity. Yeah, and then turned around and used their theological superpower twice in 2,000 years, and both times it was to declare something about a woman. Funny how that works, huh?
I'm retarded?
Before I end this episode, I want to provide an important clarification. Even non-infallible papal teachings are still considered authoritative and still hold weight in the church, especially if it's to guide the faithful known as ordinary magisterium, which refers to the regular and ongoing teaching authority of the Catholic Church. But they fall into levels of teaching that can be questioned, like the interpretation of scientific data. We see that a lot with the Shroud of Turin, for example. Applications of moral principles to changing political realities. Contrary to what people believe, the Catholic Church wants you to critically think. It wants you to ask questions. It wants you to explore the realities of being a human and having faithful disagreements, which all align with God, the Bible, and tradition. Catholicism isn't about blind obedience, but about faith-seeking understanding, and the Pope is there to encourage this as well as keep the tradition of Jesus and the apostles alive as long as it's aligned with God's words and what inspires the Bible. Isaiah 1:18 says, "Come now, let us reason together, says the Lord," which encourages dialogue, questioning, and seeking understanding. What about 1 Thessalonians 5:21? Test everything, hold fast to what is good, supports critical thinking and discernment. What about Acts 17:11? That shows early Christians engaged in questioning and study. Even in the Catechism of the Catholic Church, there are multiple instances where this is emphasized. CCC 890, 891, 892, 150, 157, and 159, just to name a few, just, numbers that I memorized for this video. Just remember in the end of the day what Jesus said, "And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I build my ecclesia, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it." What? I said ecclesia and not church. Yeah, I know, but that's for another video. Hey, if you enjoyed this episode, then I think you might like the episode that the YouTube algo thinks you might like right over here. It better be another episode of mine, though.